Tonight is a very special guest, a friend of mine who has volunteered to share on the topic of family roles. Um, I initially was going to try something new tonight, but I chose not to because I didn't want to waste too much time. I really just wanted to dive right into it. Um, so if it's okay with you, we'll just start with the definition of family roles. Definition of family roles states that there are specific responsibilities and functions that each member of a family has, which can affect how family members interact with each other. For me specifically, that means uh, going back to early days in my early childhood. Um, that's how I relate to this the most because it brought me to the point that I am right now in life. Like as far as my upbringing, being the youngest of nine, I was always like sheltered, comforted. I was around my mother all the time, so I'm basically like a little mama's boy. So just don't judge me. But being the youngest of nine, and in the environment that I grew up in, which was basically just being in the role of the baby of the bunch. I was spoiled. I was catered to a little bit, even though I didn't come from a affluent family. I didn't come from a big house on the hill, none of that type of stuff. But um, just being present in that family dynamic was uh, really. I felt as if it was just me because it was just I was there with my mother a lot, and my family always they took on roles of like each one took on different roles. I remember uh, my siblings, each one had a specific role in my life, and it was up to me just to be the baby, just to learn, just to watch and learn from them. I grew up in a small town. There wasn't a whole lot going on as a kid back then. Mind you, I grew up in the '70s. I was born in 1974, so it was a totally different time. I just remember having fun as a kid, as a child, and as life goes on, the the roles are going to change. As I got older and moved into my uh, teenage years, the roles changed because I was now just my role was just to be the school kid. My role was just to be uh, the loving, little supportive uh, uh, kid that I was meant to be until I considered consider myself to be a little more um, mature, and I started hanging out and doing things uh, that led me up to uh, engaging in different activities. And of course, you all know that I always try to throw little bits and pieces in there about my lifestyle that I lived, about my addiction, everything that I talk about. Basically, I always throw little pieces of that in there because that's how I got to be where I'm at now. Um, so, roles of family life basically shape and mold us into the people that we are today. That was just a little brief little segue into the discussion, the topic at hand, which is family roles. So I will go a little more in depth in the conversation about that as we go on. But I just want to introduce my special guest contributor for tonight, Miss Jessica Eckbold, and I wanted to just say thank you, Jessica, for being on the show. Um, I've been trying to get Jessica on here for a minute, but she's finally here. So, can you tell us a little bit about who Jessica Eckbold is?
Oh,
Where does
who I
Jessica
am.
Eckbold? Yes. How did who parents, your upbringing? Just give people a little insight on who you are.
Right. Well, I also am a child of the 70s. Proud to be from the 1900s. I like to tell people that I grew up in Frankfort, Delaware, but really that's where my grandparents were based. I'm my mother's only child. And my mom had me when she was 19, so she was pretty young. 19 was different back then, especially in my family.
Absolutely.
which was, they were very religious and very strict, and church 3 times a week type people. Um, and so when she got pregnant with me, they wouldn't have it, you know. And they tried to arrange for her to marry someone, and she wasn't going to have that, and so she left home, and she lived in her car, and until a family took her in that lived not far from my grandparents, and then she had me. And I was lucky in a way because I got a multi-generational raising, in a matter of speaking, because I spent every weekend with my grandfather, my mom's dad, and his parents, and every summer with my great aunt Linda, who lived some in West Virginia and some in Ohio. So I had the older people kind of contributing to my raising and instilling values in me and all of that good stuff. And because my mom was young and very immature, she struggled a lot, and she struggled with addiction and alcoholism, and also codependency. That, you know, is a addiction that a lot of people don't talk about regularly.
Talk about absolutely.
A lot of misunderstandings there with how that works and how that affects the family dynamic, uh, and that probably caused, I would say, a great deal of some of the upheaval that we experienced in our early years, with me being a baby and her being so young. She kind of latched on to whoever could be the provider in the situation, because she didn't know how to support herself. She'd never had a job. She barely finished high school. Um, she started drinking and experimenting, and living an alternative lifestyle, we'll say. Um, and unfortunately, that led to, her having a heart attack at her nursing school graduation, which just is like the biggest oxymoron that you could ever experience. Like, you're 27, you finally
Young,
got an education, and you gave yourself a heart attack. And
basically, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
hindsight, it just sounds so like crazy. And the fact that as a kid, I experienced that being my mom's only child. All of the attention, like you being the baby, was kind of focused on me. I'm my mom's only, I'm my grandparents' only grandchild, Uh, and having that maturity to really know what's going on, and really seeing everything from a mature perspective, more mature than really what you should be at that age.
at that, yeah,
Because, yeah, yeah. So at that time, I think I was 8. So you're definitely old enough to remember and have those emotional experiences, and um, it sticks with you. And
absolutely.
it's tough because you want to be able to talk to your family about what you're feeling as a kid, but you don't really know how to articulate that you feel unsafe, or that you don't understand why these people live with us who are not good people, um, or to ask for an escape of sorts and say, this isn't a safe place for me. Maybe I should live with somebody else.
That's
um,
that,
that's tough.
but since you said that, even in saying that, right? That's that when you said about it, those experiences had basically molded you and shaped you and pushed you into a point of, I don't want to, I guess I am going to say like a early stage of maturity. So being able to speak up and say that you didn't feel safe,
Yeah,
that was a big thing. That's an accomplishment, because that's huge. Because now, even nowadays, a lot of younger people don't have the courage to speak up for themselves and speak up and say what's really how they're really feeling. So
yeah,
at that time, at a time when when a lot of things were swept under the rug, or a lot of things weren't shared from household to household. That was a big thing, but
Mm-hmm.
you gained the courage to mention that, and I think that leads to the next question about how these experiences shaped and molded us into the people that we are today. Not to rush the conversation,
No, you're good.
but um, either positive or negative, uh, these things shape and mold us into the people that we are. And the things that we go through and the lessons that we learn help us to move forward with our lifestyle, no matter what the lifestyle is, no matter which direction we choose, no matter which path we choose to take. Um, these situations, these barriers, if there are barriers, or these, it's just these situations that we put ourselves in, or situations that are thrown at us by life or through life. We learn from them. We should learn from them. And um, I feel like a lot of times we we overlook these type of situations, like the past uh, traumas, the past situations, the past living experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't really grasp the concept of um, standing up for ourselves, learning from situations, moving forward to be a better person, which ultimately um, helps us level up, and ultimately helps us to help other people that are in our circle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
I agree. I moved away from home when I was 16 because I felt at the time that it was the best choice for me, and it made me incredibly resilient and hard on myself to try and be perfect, which is, something I still struggle with as an adult, because you see this epitome of what a perfect life is, and you're constantly climbing that mountain to try and get to whatever that goal is, but the goal just keeps moving because perfection is impossible. And
absolutely,
um, so relationships are hard, and trusting people is very hard when you have been let down on that level. Um, as a child of someone who struggled, uh, I found it really hard to trust anyone for a really long time. And you always have that feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop,
for
you
sure.
know,
Yeah,
in whatever relationship that you have, whether it's a friendship or a person that you choose to have in your life. You always have it in the back of your mind. Well, he or she is going to get sick of me at some point and kick me to the curb, and I'm, going to have to start all over again. And it just
by
hangs
you,
there.
not to really interrupt, just the fact that you
Yeah.
mentioned about the other shoe, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some people may have never heard that term, but it's basically just waiting for something to happen. It's normally a negative, just waiting
Yeah.
for something to happen. And you mentioned earlier about being in a family that where you weren't the. And mind you, I told you I share a lot. Majority of the things I speak on lead to my addiction, lifestyle, all those type of things. You mentioned about not being the direct user, not being a user yourself
Mm-hmm.
of narcotics or alcohol, right? But you dealt with it through family members,
Right.
and that's like a key thing that's a key thing for me to talk about. And I like that because I want people outside of the scope of addiction that they really don't partake in the using, but they're still affected. I was explaining to somebody the other day about, even though you're not the user, if one of your family members is the user, but you're still affected.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a direct. You don't have to be the user, the active user, to be affected. So when you said that your family member was a user, how do you feel as though that affected you, or how did it help you move to um, reaching that level of wanting to be a perfectionist
I would
or
say
wanting to
that
be better?
oh, yeah, absolutely. It drove me to be the opposite. So everything that she did in her life that I saw through my child eyes, I determined at that point that I was going to do the exact opposite of everything that she did because I wanted my life to be better. And I made conscious choices to disconnect from a lot of people um, growing up and family members because I needed to break free to create my own space that I felt safe in mentally. Um, and then when I got to a point where, okay, I feel like I've made a mistake here, or um, that my life wasn't going in the direction that I had hoped that it would, I would say, okay, we're going to scrap this and we're going to go back and we're going to start over and we're going to keep doing this until we make the life that we're proud of, right? And that's not just for kids of who had parents who had addiction issues. It's also for the addicts because they
Right.
have to go
Yeah.
back and start over and start working towards the life that they want to have and rebuild relationships or say, you know what, these relationships don't work for me and start
At all.
over.
Mhm. And that's a long process. I mean, it's like sometimes we'll throw in the towel. And it's not even like you said. It's not even about the addict or the user. This is a general life thing, just a
Right.
regular life thing. People that consider to be quote unquote normal, it's still
Mm-hmm.
going to be that type of situation. I can't really like understand. Yes, I can. The way that we are now as a society, right? Like the judgments and the stigmas that go along with the addict is like just focus on the substance, but addiction goes so far beyond that and it's crazy that sometimes it's overlooked, and we fail to realize that some people are addicted to chaos, some people are addicted to violence, and people are addicted to just some people just addicted to drama. There's so many different
Mm-hmm.
variables that go along with addiction, and substance abuse because they're actually two different things. But
Yes.
yeah, it's just like back to the family roles part. when when you finally moved past, when you finally was at the level, the age to make your own decisions, and became an adult and moved on with your life and try to maintain a lifestyle, move on with building your future.
Mm-hmm.
How did your family, the family members or member that was uh, responsible for the actions, how did they uh, relate to you, or did they?
Yeah. So I had a few years where I really tried to involve my mom in my life because I wanted to have a relationship with her because she's my mom, right?
Yes.
But every time I would open the door for her, I would get this just flood of emotional manipulation coming through. And after about 10 years of really struggling with that and not being able to be around her without her making me feel bad or guilty for the choices that she made in her life, I at that point decided, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a part of your life because I mentally and emotionally can't take it. And it's hard because every time something happy in your life or sad happens, you want to pick up the phone and call your mom and be like, this is what I have going on in my world. But
For the support, emotion.
until until they get to a place where they have dealt with their addictions, whether those are chemical or relationship or whatever, um, they're not good for themselves, they're not good for you, and you have to acknowledge that and be at peace with it and forgive them for them not being able to be there in the capacity that you want them to be. And there's a grieving process to that, and it's
So
continual.
basically, saying like the role is the role. Would it be safe to say that the role changed?
Oh,
As
absolutely.
time went on,
Yeah.
because I think that like
Yeah.
in life, period, the role is going to change uh, tremendously. It's going to change continuously. But the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that we can do in that is to roll with the punches, basically, to change with the
Certainly.
role. When the role changes, all we can do is um, try to make the positive, try to make the best of that situation.
Yep.
And I still, I want to continue to go back. It might sound
Hmm.
like I'm, going around in circles, but I want to go. I like I said, I always try to throw the parts in there about addiction because that's a part of my life.
Hmm.
Chemical addiction, cocaine and alcohol, not including just the lifestyle, the excitement of being out in the street and you know put myself in jeopardy. All those type of things were exciting to me. But as the roles changed from being an active user to being on this side, you know, um, my actions had to change. The way that I talk, the way that I associate with other people, the people that I'm around, you know, all that stuff has to change. Um, so initially, it starts with a thought, just the thought of wanting to do something different, the thought of visualizing myself doing taking another path. Um, where do you remember where you had that thought where you wanted to try to break away from the cycle, or what try to move away from the path that you were on,
Yeah. I would
because it's more
say,
like an
oh,
emotional
yeah.
thing. It wasn't the chemical, so it's more like an emotional
Hmm.
role.
At that point, because I had kind of gone from being the kid to being the caretaker, mediator, negotiator, to being the caretaker further on in my life, I would say probably around the age of 30 was when I decided that I can't be the person who overlooks your addiction and that you use as an emotional punching bag. And at that point, I changed my role into a role of power and um, vigilance for myself, um, and deciding to parent myself at that point and nurture myself because my mother just was not capable at that time. So at that
Can
point,
you
I kind of
just
took my
can you,
power back.
you said can you repeat that? To nurture yourself,
To nurture
parent
myself,
yourself.
parent
What do you
myself,
mean by that?
absolutely. Because if you can't depend on someone and you only have yourself at that point, in your life, you have to be the person who steps in and says, okay, these are what our goals are, these are what our priorities are. I'm going to teach myself how to do all these things. um, I'm going to learn to be emotionally okay within myself, um, so that I can move past the hurt and find happiness and not dwell in things that happened 20 years ago, because that's just, it hurts you more than it hurts the person who brought those things into your existence. They don't remember any of that stuff because they've had
Yeah.
several things going on, but you still carry that with you. So learning to process it and talk about it with people like yourself who have seen it from your perspective. I see it from my perspective, and being able to take those two perspectives and talk about it is actually a part of the healing, because you're understanding it from both directions, and so am I.
Both angles.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And that's where, and you mentioned that part. You mentioned the key part about the healing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not, a lot of times we can share. I know for me personally, I can talk about something, and never heal from it because I'm really not working on it. Just talking about something is therapeutic. It could be cathartic, but it's
Right.
not. If you're not actually working on the issue, then we probably won't. I probably won't heal from it. It's just
Yeah.
words, you know. Um, and that's where I think that when you mentioned about uh, another person, sharing it with another person, or your higher power, or whatever you want to consider, God, or whatever you want to put in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we don't start or continue to utilize other people and utilize some type of support network or something, not just depend on our own thought processes. I
Mm-hmm.
know me personally, I get stuck in my own thought process, and I'll talk. not literally talk to myself, but uh, pose a
That's okay
question to
too.
myself, or start a conversation, up here in my head, and had try to talk myself through something, and end up and come up and answer it myself. And I have it all. I have everything all discombobulated, because if I lean on my own understanding, I'll definitely mess some stuff up. So it's always good to run things by other people,
Yeah.
and because we never know who is going to be who's going to be there to give us uh, not what we want to hear, but the actual solution. A lot of times people can talk and never offer a solution. You can talk all
Hmm.
day and never offer a solution. Um, but finding the people that genuinely have your well-being, that are concerned about you, um, that's a key. That's a key in healing,
Hmm.
because you always want to be able to lean on somebody else's, let somebody else give you some input, some time, instead of being stubborn like me, and leaning on my own understanding. And it's definitely not going to get me anywhere, but taking myself around in circles.
Right. I think I found a lot of purpose in education, in furthering my education, and then also in helping people in whatever capacity that I could at the time that I could do it. Um, and that actually gave me a lot of healing, And for a small period of time when I was little, lived in the battered women's shelter in Milford.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous organization, great facility. And then after I pursued my education, I worked at the crisis house in Georgetown. So then again, you see it from both perspectives. Um, and even though it was the hardest job I think I've ever had in my entire life, working at the crisis house, I got the most healing and also perspective of other people and their struggles, which made
Yeah.
me um, realize that I made it past that point and it was okay to do better and be at this point because I had made it past because I had put the work in. So helping other
And
people is
that's
very therapeutic.
I can definitely I never knew that you worked in that capacity, but I could definitely see you doing that, because you just your tone, just you being the person that you are, and being genuine, um, in just talking with you. I would say I have one more question, and
Mm-hmm.
then we're probably gonna end up wrapping this up. Um, where do you see, what is your role, since we're still talking about roles, family role,
Mm-hmm.
not to get into your personal life, but where do you see your role? Where is your role now?
Okay.
Since with
Yeah.
everything that you've been through, your experiences, all the situations, what is your role at this point?
My role at this point in my life would be wife and animal mama, which gives
Animal
me,
mama.
yeah, it gives me so much joy. I have chickens and dogs and cats and all of it,
Oh, you have a
and
farm. Okay.
no, it's something like that. And I get so much joy out of that nurturing experience. Um, I highly recommend it.
Okay. Well, I'm not an
Yeah.
animal person, so but I hear people talking about therapy, the animal therapy, and all this. But I'm not with that. I think I'm just leaning toward getting an aquarium with some fish in it, and that'd be about it.
Hey, that's good
But
too.
thank you, Jessica, for joining tonight. I just wanted to wrap this up and end it by saying, um, just these conversations that we have for I always try to throw this out there. I guess this is like my disclaimer for Life Chat podcast. It's not, and I'm going to say it for the last time probably. This is not a full fledged uh, $100,000 podcast studio and all that stuff. But I'm looking past that. What I'm looking for, what I'm looking toward is just, to get the information out, to get some type of information out to somebody that might be in need. We never know who is going to pick up on on something that was said. It might not seem like a whole bunch of stuff at one time, but we never know our help is going to lie. We never know what we say, how what we say is going to affect somebody else. So it might just be a small little tidbit, and that's all that I look for. So I thank you for being on my platform. Thank you for joining me tonight,
Thank you for
and
having me.
um, I appreciate you so much. If there's any, is there anything else that you want to add before we close out?
I want to know what your role is
What my
today.
role is right now?
Yes.
My
Yeah.
role today in my life, my role is to be a help, to be a beacon for somebody else. Um, a lot of people, including my family members, and I normally talk about this a lot. My family members, people that I'm close to in my circle, even people that are outside of my circle, that I hope to, try to touch somebody else and show that, just tell the truth about my situation, tell the truth about who I am, tell the truth about who I was and who I am today. From incarceration for a lot of years, dealing with trauma, my biggest traumatic experience, watching, my mother, the passing of my mother at an early age of 14. I'm 50 years old now, but I still never fully grieved over that. Um, that's one of my biggest traumatic experiences. My addiction, smoking crack cocaine, drinking every day, running the streets, jeopardizing myself, jeopardizing my family, just being caught up in a whole bunch of illegal stuff. Um, but just moving past that and being on this side, the recovery side, which I'm not ashamed to discuss. My life is an open book when it comes to that, because I'm just blessed to have been on both sides to be able to um, be a beacon to somebody else that might be struggling or has struggled, and just share my story. Share pieces of me, and hopefully somebody else can gain something from it. That's my role right now.
I
I
love
just
that.
feel
That's
like
awesome.
I just feel like you watched me then, so watch me now.
Yep.
Hopefully we can both learn from each other.
That's
Was that on point?
that's perfect. That was
Was it
perfect.
close? Okay, but yeah, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I just want um that's the reason why I do what I do now. It might not be on a huge grand scale, but I just do what I do now because I just want, I want to leave a legacy. And when I say leave a legacy, I mean for my family and my children, and people that love me and people that appreciate me and support me. And they saw me go through what I went through, but now they see me doing what I'm doing now, and I just want to stay on this path and continue to do what I'm doing.
You can do it. My hat's off to you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me,
Thank
Derek.
you so much.
Have a
Thank you
great
for being
night.
on. You as well. Just a minute. I need you to stay on just for a few minutes after I close out. But thank you all for joining me tonight on Live Chat Podcast. I see you. Like, share, subscribe. Talk to you next week. Be safe. Be blessed.
Welcome to the Life Chat Podcast, seeking the truth with Derek Powell, navigating you through every Wednesday night. New topics ignite, join the journey, let's take flight. Bringing insights that change our view. Derek's voice, clear and true. Tune in each week, discover new light. Life Chat Podcast, reach a new height.
Okay.
Are you there, God? It's me,
Jess.
Margaret.